I look at it as, instead of trying to annihilate a symptom, our symptoms are a gift, and we should move towards them and embrace them and find out what the message is, what it is that they want. They're there to give us literally a blueprint and a roadmap.
Hello and welcome to the Inspire Cafe podcast, where we bring you conversations and inspirational stories of people overcoming adversity and then how they came out of it transformed with a positive outlook or outcome. People are incredibly resilient and we need to hear more of their stories. This is Kathy Delatorre. Today we're talking with Martha Blessing. Martha has all sorts of titles. She's a former nurse, a speaker, intuitive life coach, healing mentor, spiritual teacher, and author. And does Martha have a story to tell? At one point of her life, Martha had undergone 3 back surgeries. She was in a wheelchair, had fibromyalgia, digestive problems, and was suffering from severe pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, she said her pain reached a level 12. Martha said Western medicine and science wasn't helping, but then she tried an energetic healing session for the first time, and her pain fell down to a 0 on that scale for a few days. That's when Martha knew there was an alternative way to solve her health and pain issues. So she began a daily holistic practice that not only cured her pain, but her other health problems, including cancer. Now she teaches others how to help heal themselves and is on a mission to share that knowledge. We'll have a link to Martha and her book on the inspirecafe.com. And if you liked the episode, please share it with a friend. The idea is to spread inspiration one episode at a time. Okay, let's get back to Martha's story. Martha, I admit that I chuckled when I read on your website that you call yourself a self-professed spiritual disturber.
Yes, I do.
I thought that was hilarious. Okay, so aside from that title, you are trained in a long list of practices and professions. Can you just please share, what is it that you do now?
Sure. Right now, it's still sort of a mix. It's a blend. It's a hybrid of all of the trainings that I have had, as well as the things that I have moved through. When I talk about illness and personal and professional and spiritual growth. And so I am a life coach. I'm an intuitive. I'm a 3rd generation intuitive. And so that blends automatically into the work that I do with clients for coaching, for helping them get to the core cause of whatever the imbalances are that they're experiencing, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. You know, we're all one package, right? So we can't really separate any of those things. And so I came from a background with 25 years in Western medicine, but when I was in these ailments and living with pain, medicine wasn't what helped. And so my work now is to help people really go inward and become their own best healer and to get the answers for themselves rather than continue to look outside themselves for external solutions.
Okay. So when you say to become their own best healer, are you talking about internal healing as far as our mindset, our mental, emotional health, or are you talking about physical health, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Absolutely both.
Okay, great. We just want to clarify.
Yeah.
It's all encompassing.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. And, you know, I've struggled with that over the years, right? Because I've had a wellness center and have worn many, many hats. And I always cringe when somebody says, yeah, I do it all, right? Like if you're going to get your house fixed, you call a plumber. You don't want somebody that does it all. You want somebody that specializes. But I really do it all because we're all one package. Again, we're just all one. We can't separate our mind from our body.
That's right. And what's interesting with you is that you are professionally trained to be a registered nurse as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you
Yes.
have both Western and holistic approaches.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's cut to the chase because there's a lot of information that you provide. First of all, your website says that you healed yourself from cancer, over 10 years of chronic pain, 3 back surgeries, and you were living in a wheelchair. And you've written that your health and healing did not come from Western medicine or science. Can you share what you mean and how you got healed?
Sure. Absolutely. So I worked in that Western medicine system for 25 years. And what I came to know and what I came to understand, I was born into a family of healers and spiritualists. And so I, at a very young and early age, had a sense that there was something beyond what we typically see as our 5 senses. I would sense things and feel things and get messages. And when I started to have chronic daily pain and had to have surgeries and was living in a wheelchair, I just had a knowing inside that this was not to be my fate, that this was not to be the end result. And I started getting messages about that. And so it caused me to go deeper within myself. It caused me to ask what I like to say is a different set of questions. And that was, where have we come to believe that our bodies are going to break down and turn against us? And is this truly what's going to happen? And so I started to learn about energy and energy medicine specifically, and to view the body not just as this physical body and that we're at the mercy of doctors and medicine and people outside ourselves, but that we actually have more control over our physical bodies than we realize when we start to look at it as just a system or a container of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have this in medicine, like how I explain to people, when you go to the doctor and let's say for your annual checkup and they do an EKG, an electrocardiogram, they want to see how the heart is working.
Sure.
Right? So they hook up these electrodes on the outside of your body to see what's happening on the inside. And when they're measuring that, right, they get a printout, a piece of paper, and it has all these squiggly lines on it. It's measuring the waves of energy in your body.
Uh-huh.
So even medicine is saying, and what do they call it? An S wave, a Q wave, a T wave, right?
Yeah.
And so if they find a problem, if they find something wrong, then they do something to change the energy of how the heart is working. They'll either, in some cases, right, when we see, if we watch too much TV and we see that they have the paddles, right, they're cardioverting. What are they doing? They're putting pulses of energy through someone to bring them back to life.
Yeah.
And when we have, if someone's in a coma, God forbid, they want to know brain activity, they have an EEG, and they measure the electrical waves that are happening and pulsing from the brain.
Yes.
So everywhere we look in medicine, we have energy. Now, here's the important piece is that those electrodes, when they're measuring an electrocardiogram, they're on the outside of your body, which means the outside of our body conducts energy as well as the inside. And so we have the ability to have that facilitated and changed. We have the ability to change that energy. Some people will go for energy healing treatments,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where it started for me. I was up at Kripalu Center in Massachusetts, and that's what happened. I had an energy healing treatment, and it was the first time in 6 years that I didn't take any narcotics or pain pills or medication, and I went for 3 days without any pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're ability to change the energy from the outside, so you're saying that we have the ability to change it also from the inside.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Wow. Let's talk about your pain level for a second. You had all sorts of things going on with your body, not, withstanding the 3 back surgeries, fibromyalgia, digestive problems, and a bunch of other stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you have pain all over your body. On a scale of 1 to 10 at this time, before you started getting any energetic healing, where were you on that scale from 1 to 10?
I was an 8 to 12, honestly.
Oh my gosh.
Every single day. And that was with the medications.
With the medications.
Yeah.
And that's just so crazy because I remember reading in your book, we should mention that right now. Martha is also the author of God is a Pink Cloud, where she talks about her healing journey. And in your book, you're describing that throughout these years, you were also at times working as well.
Yes.
Yes. So living through your pain, your daily pain. So you're living between a 10 and 12 on the scale of pain threshold. After you had that first initial energetic healing session, where did your pain go to from 0 to 10?
Literally, it went down to 0.
Wow.
For 3 days. For 3 days.
Yeah.
That whole weekend, I had no pain and I didn't take any pain pills.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really truly was. It really I mean, and in hindsight, I look at that and it was just like, wow, pay attention. Pay attention. Like, it really grabbed me, right? Because I was still,
Yes.
working as a nurse. I was still in Western medicine. And I honestly, this is pretty much pre-internet, right? So there wasn't as much information available. I couldn't go Google and look things up. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's truly, for people that are listening, like, we don't recognize what it was like before that and how hard it was to get information and to use this to heal.
That's so true.
It was so different. And that's the good news and the bad news. There's also too much information sometimes, but it's hard to sift through it. But yes.
Sure. Okay, so let me take us back a little bit before you got to that point for that first energetic healing. Mm-hmm. You were going through a lot, and there's this one portion in your book when you're talking to your doctor just before going into the surgical room. Mm-hmm. And your doctor said, he's telling you he's skeptical of the outcome of the surgery. Not a great way to enter surgery, I think. But he was telling you that he was skeptical about you being able to walk again. Mm-hmm. And something overcame you, and you were very, very focused and intense, and you made a special request of your doctor. Mm-hmm. Can you share what you told them? I think this was just an amazing point of your book.
Oh, thank you. Indeed, I did, because I was starting to learn, and the reason why they were doing the surgery, the doctors were not going into the surgery with the intention of helping me walk again. They had agreed to do it. The insurance companies and the doctors had been arguing and fighting about whether or not to do a surgery and whether or not they would pay for it, because the doctors did not believe that I would walk again. However, they did feel that I had disc herniations at L4 and L5, and according to what they believed, my S1 nerve root was shattered, and that was the reason why I couldn't walk. But they felt that if they could relieve some of the disc pressure, the bulging of the disc at the L5 level, that it might help release and mitigate some of the pain that I was experiencing.
Okay.
So going into that surgery, I made a request that he would not go into that believing that I was going to come out the same way. Like, I'm going to be your miracle and I am going to walk, and please, get your what together and hold that space for me, hold in your heart that space for me, that I'm going to be the person that is going to be your miracle, and I am going to walk. I am going to heal.
What was his reaction?
Mostly like every other doctor, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah, because I remember
they just kind of, they're very, very pacifying. They're very pacifying, and I'm really quite I don't want to even say lucky. I'm very, very blessed that I went through 25 years of working as a nurse, because it helped me have an ability to speak to the doctors in the medical community in a way that they would still respect me without necessarily doing what I wanted.
Right.
As odd as that sounds, like their bedside manners have come a long way over the years, but he looked at me like I was a little bit crazy, but he also, I do firmly believe that he went into that surgery with a much more open heart, instead of just, I was a number. I was just another person. I was just another body of tissue.
Right. Okay. So I think this was your second back surgery, if I'm not mistaken. And
Correct.
this happened way before that first energetic healing you experienced, a long time before that happened. What came over you where you felt like it was almost like a sense of a knowing and that you were going to come out okay, and that you had this determination that you were going to get healed? Where did that come from?
It really came from a mystical experience.
Mm-hmm.
It really truly was a mystical experience. And at the time, I thought it was from a narcotic from taking too much narcotics. I'm not going to say an overdose. I don't, but when you take as many drugs as I was taking, they had me on Valium. They had me on, I was up at 10,500 of hydrocodone. I was taking Elavil. I was taking Motrin. I mean, this was just a cocktail every 6 hours, every 8 hours for years and years and years. And so at the time, I really truly believed that I had like a hallucination, a narcotic hallucination that I had learned about in nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really where the title of my book came from, because I had a mystical experience, and I saw this cloud of energy come down and really wrap around the doctor and protect me from his words and protect me from his energy. And I heard that voice say, don't take this. You don't have to take this. This isn't, you have choices. You can do something about this. And I ran with it because I didn't have, what was my other options?
Right.
Right. Like, why not?
Yeah. Or you just, believing it. And I think that's what most people do. We believe everything that our doctors tell us. Like, you have a terminal disease, you're going to die. I think a lot of people are just going to succumb to that and not take that. I don't want to take this, or I think there's another option for me, or let's try something else. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel at this point, quite honestly, and I guess I'm considered, this is kind of fringe or on the edge, but not so much, because there are many people who I think would agree with me on this and support this. But I truly feel that, we look back at different times in history, and we see situations or people who have impacted and massive deaths have occurred. And I truly believe that they're going to look back on this time in history, and they're going to look at medicine and all of the drugs and all of the things, and people are going to wonder, how could they do that? How could they believe and allow this to happen?
Yeah.
Because that's just what I feel in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
They're going to look back upon this time, and, I'm specifically thinking about the whole cancer industry and the drugs and the chemicals that are being pumped into people. And we have so many people that are healing so many things. I just watched, I won't be able to think of his name. It's a young man. He's an athlete now. He was in the film industry. I think his website is MS Hope. And he was diagnosed with MS 20 some years ago. And you just would never know. He's changed it all with diet and nutrition and exercise. And, what was a sentence that would land him in a wheelchair years ago, if you saw him, you would absolutely never know. You would never know that he had this diagnosis. And he made that choice, much like I did. It's like, no, this is not, no, it's not going this way.
Right. So you were able to heal yourself without Western medicine and science. Can you briefly describe that process for us? I'm sure a lot of people are curious.
Yeah, yeah. Where I was then and where I am now, I have done my own research, right? Through all of these years of working with clients and what I went through is it's really a 5-part strategy for anyone with healing. And the first part is to get to the underlying cause. Okay. So for me with my back, I had repressed many things that had happened to me younger in my life as a child, abuse and things that were all stored. Remember, we're back to that, the body being a container of energy. And so I had energy from trauma that was stored in that low back, that sacral area.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I look at it as instead of trying to annihilate a symptom, our symptoms are a gift and we should move towards them and embrace them and find out what the message is, what it is that they want. They're there to give us literally a blueprint and a roadmap. And that's the piece that starts with the cause. Get to the core cause, because our bodies truly do know how to be healthy. Like, there is order to our bodies. There's order to the universe. People don't stop to think, like, my heart is beating without me having to do a thing.
Right.
How does that happen? Like I breathe on my own at night while I'm sleeping. How does that happen? We have order.
We have order. So if we address the root issue of what those physical symptoms or those messages are telling us by addressing our past, are you saying like memories or traumas? Then if we address those, then our physical symptoms would improve.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If we move towards it, so the first step is get to the cause, get to the cause, and then get clarity as to what steps need to happen. Is this physical? Is this mental? Is this emotional? Is it all of these pieces? And then that next step is to clear whatever those obstacles are. In a lot of cases, it is what I call a core wound of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of a wound that has occurred, from the time we're born till we're about 12, 13, 14 years old. Our subconscious mind is not fully developed, and it doesn't have the ability to reject what's being put into it.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't even have to be a big, huge trauma of any kind. It can be something as simple as just emotional neglect that a child would experience for many years, right? As a young child, that emotional neglect, and we start to draw false beliefs about it. We make up a story, and that becomes a core wound.
So essentially, this core wound evolves into a limiting a belief.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You have an interesting example in your book, what you experienced, a limiting a belief that you learned when you were a child. Would you mind sharing what that is?
There were many.
Okay.
Tell me which one, Kathy.
Okay. I remember you were talking about, you had an aha moment about your mom, and she was fear-based about.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Relationships.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Relationships. Yes, very much so. She programmed me with the fear, number one, very much of lack. There's not enough to go around in the world, which made absolutely no sense because, I went to private schools. We did not suffer in any way. My mom and my dad both went to college, which, back in the day, that wasn't the norm for everyone.
Sure.
So how she got this, but she very much, she believed that a man had to take care of me. I should marry a doctor or a lawyer because that is the only way that you could have someone take care of you. And there really wasn't the idea of marry for love. It was marry for safety and security.
Uh-huh.
To be married for money.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did that limiting belief affect your mindset, your perspective while you were an adult before you realized that it was affecting you?
Oh my gosh. In so many ways, because number one, it sort of gave me this subconscious message of, not being worthy and not being good enough
Okay.
and not being able, right? Like instead of saying, wow, you could be or do or have anything that you want, instead of being inspired to step into whatever was my gifts in this world, I was more encouraged to just sort of find someone to take care of me. Rather than, nowadays it's like, oh, let's find our purpose. That was
Right.
never encouraged. And even to the point of, it's really funny. When I was in high school, my two things that I thought about wanting to do was journalism and writing
Uh-huh.
and nutrition and food science. And I was told I couldn't major in journalism because I would be a starving artist.
Oh boy.
That wasn't okay. And so here I am, years later, I write a book and I practice Ayurvedic medicine, which is all about food. And, so
Yes.
the good news is if you do the work and allow your passions to come through, you will find your purpose and end up there anyway.
Boy, you really did make a long about circle.
Right? It took me a while.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So these feelings of I'm not enough or lack, it's somehow manifested in the pain in your body.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It was just fear.
Yeah.
Fear. And the abuse, having gone through abuse, but also when we look again at the body as an energy container, those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, that programming, those beliefs, they have energy.
Yes, they do.
They, thought forms have energy. We know that again, back to the EEG in the brain. And so they literally become their own entity and take on a life of their own.
You include a lot of tips in your book and ways to start practicing what you teach. Mm-hmm. And included in that are mantras or affirmations. And you have a long list of example affirmations. And I just love that reminder because it does saying those mantras, saying those affirmations we all say affirmations. Not all of them are positive.
Right.
But if we intentionally say the positive affirmations like you are teaching in your book, it really does shift your mindset to gratitude and being present and appreciating everything that's in your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even to the point of, why would I want to appreciate pain? I mean, why would I want to appreciate pain? I wouldn't, unless I flip from what is the norm and I say, oh, wait a minute, I'm experiencing this and I can actually move towards it and find out why it's there. And then it becomes a gift. And I do love it. And that's really the mindset that I have and that I work with people now. Like I teach people how to be in communion with themselves, with their body. The way out is in, right? And so when they have some kind of symptom or some kind of blocked energy, we don't actually need to go to someone to clear that energy. We have the ability to clear it ourselves.
Is this what you describe as, or what you call love meditation?
That's one piece of it. Sure. Okay. Absolutely. That's where it started. That's where it started for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you call love meditation. Can you describe for us what that is?
Sure. So the love meditation is a meditation that I channeled, and it came from my grandmother who had passed when I was 6 years old. And when I was at Kripalu Center, the same time that I had that experience with energy healing, I began to channel this information. And essentially it's moving our awareness into our chest and our heart center, becoming aware of our breath and our breathing. And it guides a person into that space and mixes a time when they experienced deep love. and it combines that with energy, and it just brings such a profound sense of peace and love and healing. And I started with that, and over the course of a few days, it took me a little while to, this is all in hindsight, right? Like
Sure.
when it was happening, I really wasn't sure what was going on. And so it took me a little while, but I started to just follow where I was being led. I started to just follow the guidance. And I got this message to take that feeling, take that light and that love and that energy and move it with my breath. Similar to how people do breathing in yoga, right? And then they get releases of pains in their muscles and things like that. And so I started to do that. And that was how I started to release all of the fibromyalgia that was in my tissues. I started to learn how to move this energy around in my body and to be present with it, right? Like, again, to go in and move towards what was going on instead of trying to annihilate it.
So sending love, the energy of love towards the pain points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It really is. You know what? I just say that I was just sort of the keeper of that meditation, because there is something to it that is just so profound, and people listen to it for the first time and, it opens them up.
Mm-hmm.
It opens them up. They cry. I have a couple of clients right now, and she's like, I'm still working on it, because whatever the grief is, whatever that pain, whatever that story, whatever that wound is, it has a tendency to shut us down, to shut our hearts off and close our hearts from not only the world, but from ourselves.
Yeah, because we don't want to face it.
Yeah, we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel. And that's the problem with the trauma, is that, we're doing everything we can on the outside, external, to not feel that pain. And we don't always have to go marching right through it. Like, it's different. We think that it's going to come out the same way it went in, which it doesn't.
Uh-huh.
But we have that ability, if we move towards it, to actually clear it. But what happens a lot of times is the grief that has been there for so long, being in resistance to loving ourselves, is opened up.
Mm-hmm.
That we move into loving ourselves and moving towards the truth. There's really a reframing then at that point about, oh, I believed all of this for all these years, but the truth is, da 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 da. Our divinity and our body is amazing, and it has the ability to heal, and, to find out what are the reasons why we went through these things. And I have absolutely, as horrible as it was to go through all of that for 10 years, I have absolutely no regrets, because it led me to who and where I am today. And I love who I am, and I love what I do. And I think it's just so important.
And you're teaching people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So using this method, and it's not just a one-time thing, right?
Oh gosh, no. Well, I haven't seen it one time.
It's a daily practice.
Absolutely. That's actually one of my favorite sayings, is we become what we practice.
Okay. So you still practice it.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just clarify one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you wrote that you believe that illness is a learned experience and that we can unlearn it. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Ayurvedic medicine, which I have been a clinical practitioner in for many, many years. Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. It's the very first medicine and healing system there ever was in the world 5,000 years ago. And Ayurveda says and teaches us that illness is a failure of intellect. Illness is a failure of intellect. I know, right? And so that it's what we make up in our minds and what we create, which is typically fear. We're either regretting the past or worrying about the future.
Yes.
And so that fear is very real energy. When they say 75 to 90% of illness is stress related. Well, what is stress? Like when you go into the doctor, okay, sure, they hook you up to an EKG, but they don't hook you up to a stressometer, We have no way of measuring, right? What is that? Where's the stress machine?
Sure.
And so stress, really what it is the mental, emotional, or spiritual response to people and events that are happening in our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is our mental, emotional thoughts and responses to what's going on.
Right.
And so most of the time it's safety and security related, or the three universal fears. I'm not lovable. The world is not a safe place, and abandonment. And these tend to be like the driving force for so many people. And there is the failure of intellect.
Because we're believing these false beliefs.
Believing and creating from that instead of, like, again, if we go, when something happens, it's quick, go to the doctor. I don't want to, oh my God, I better get this checked out. I mean, I've even done it, right?
Right.
I mean, you get a little pain and it's like, oh my God, it's cancer,
Right.
because there's so much fear. That's what we're programmed into.
Yes.
And so, I feel very, very fortunate to have gone down this path and to have gotten the clarity and the healing and the information and the tools to be able to teach people, again, to become their own best healer. My motto is, give me a fish, feed me for a day, teach me to fish, feed me for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that is truly where I operate from, because I talk about on my website the 4 levels of consciousness and healing. And level 4 is accepting 100% responsibility for everything in our life and in our body that we're experiencing. And that's the good news, because if we accept 100% responsibility, then we can change it.
Mm-hmm.
We can facilitate change, and we're not dependent on someone else to do it.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
I read on your website that you also have healed from cancer, and I didn't remember reading about cancer in your book. So if someone is saying, well, what about cancer? Are you saying that cancer is my fault, or, it was, my failed intellect that caused it? What do you tell people who are asking questions like that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't write about the cancer in my book because my book happened way long ago. The cancer was in 2015.
Okay, it's recent.
And so, yeah, it was recent. And again, it's a frequency. Now, the body knows how to be healthy. We have tons and tons and tons of people who are healing cancer without any kind of chemotherapy, without any kinds of treatment. And the day that I got a phone call from my doctor, and they said, you have EHE. There was this little thing on my head. And so the cancer that I had it's a very rare, 1 in 1 million people get it. There's no protocol. There's no treatment. They don't know how it behaves. They don't know what to do for it. And this was on my head. So the day that phone call came in, I set down the phone and I was like, didn't think that's how my day was going to go today.
Sure.
And I sat down and I got a message, and it said, blood, river of life, where have you cut yourself off from the river of life?
Huh.
Now, mind you, I've been doing intuitive, getting downloads and reading energy since I was 6 years old. So when I got that message, I trust it. I know that is where I want to look to correct whatever this is that's going on. Because the cancer that I have, this EHE, is a rare cancer of the blood vessels.
Okay.
And blood truly is the river of life. It's what carries all the nutrients in our body.
Yeah.
So I had to stop and think about that. Well, it took me right back to my relationship with my mother.
Really?
Yep. It took me right back to the pain and the story and the wound. She has been my soul teacher. She has been all of the lessons in who I am to be and the things that I'm to overcome spiritually, and to in the love meditation, it says that the affirmation in the mantra that you repeat in the love meditation is, I am the full expression of God's love.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at okay, what has happened between my mother and I over the years in our relationship that has caused me to cut myself off from being who I am, from the river of life, and living as that full expression.
And so what did you learn about yourself?
I learned that I had to step out into the world. I had to get over my fears. I had to get over my feelings of unworthiness and not good enough.
Still.
Yeah. Because I had to play a bigger game. At each step, the more you grow,
Yes.
the scary, like you continue to work through fears if you're fully evolving. And I was afraid. I've been teaching and talking to groups of 30, 40, 50, 75, but I kept getting this message. No, we need you to be on a stage talking to 200 and 300 people. And that scared the crap out of me.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
There was just such a fear in me that was not, again, back to the mind, right? Or the mindset.
And now you do it. Now you speak to big crowds.
I just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know that it's a disservice if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's a disservice if I don't. There are so many people who are suffering and are in pain and looking for solutions.
Or Western medicine is failing them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a woman right now, a client in New Jersey, and she came to me through a live stream that I do in my group on Facebook every week. And she listened about 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and she's, in her mid 40s, and her life is changing, but she has had anxiety for about 6 years. Severe anxiety that's limiting her life. And she has children, and she has a husband and a family. And so she went to the doctors. There was something told her, that intuition told her after 3 years, they put her on every medication imaginable. And she's like, I can't do this. This isn't me. I know this isn't right. I know there is another way. I've got to keep searching. And so I feel so deeply, deeply grateful to be able to connect to these people, to be able to help them. So she's doing coaching now, and she's able to, her life is changing. She told me the other day, she said, this pain I used to have in my neck, I've had it for 10 years. It's finally gone.
Wow.
It's just finally gone.
That's terrific.
Yeah. The anxiety is, instead of it being a 10, it's down to a 2 or a 3 without the medications, without becoming a zombie. So here's my point to all of that, is that she grew up in an alcoholic environment. And so this anxiety is nothing more than energy. It has a message. It has a place for her to heal.
Right.
And now she's working on, we're talking about, I said, her kids, her last of her 3 children are going to be leaving to go to college. And she's like, I've raised my kids, and now it's time for me. Like, what's the next chapter for me? And she said, well, it's definitely going to be teaching and helping people with anxiety.
That's great.
Which just makes my heart sing,
Yeah, you created that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to just continue to create more and more ripple effects, is to help people through this so they can teach. There's not enough people doing it.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, Martha, winding down here, if there's one thing that you wanted to, we talked about a lot of different topics, but
sure,
if there's one thing that you would like to leave about maybe what you've learned from your experience, or words of encouragement, or anything like that, who's experiencing or maybe have gone through something similar to you, what would you like to say?
Oh, I just would like people to have an optimistic mindset and to keep searching, to keep looking. If they have the smallest inclination that there is another solution or another answer, or even if they don't, to entertain the idea that there is, and to keep searching and keep looking. We all have the ability to heal from the inside out. We all have the ability to move energy blocks and to live with freedom in our bodies, and to live with joy and exhilaration in our bodies.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so how can people find you or get a hold of you?
Yes, thank you. They can go to my website at marthablessing.com, www.marthablessing.com. And I also invite people to come join me in my Freedom Solutions group on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community for women who are looking to do exactly the things that we've talked about today. And I do live streams in there every week that are there to educate people and really teach them and help them to move through whatever is going on with themselves.
Okay, wonderful. So marthablessing.com. Also, don't forget to check out her book, God is a Pink Cloud. We'll have links to Martha and her book on our website as well. Martha, before we sign off, is there anything else that you would like to share? Maybe that's something that's new that's coming up, or I just always like to ask that.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. I have a program that will be coming out, a new group program, which I'm super, super excited about because it gives people the opportunity to go through these 5 steps for healing, what I call the 5-part strategy, the 5 C's. And that is the Healing Blueprint program. It previously was not done as a group program, and now it's going to be offered at a very, very reasonable rate as a group program, and they'll have support from me with weekly Q&As. And that should be launching probably by the first week in June.
Wonderful. So that's an online program or in person?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an online program. Yep.
Excellent. How it's exciting, Martha. Thank you.
It is very exciting.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your story and all that you're doing to help others. You're creating such an impact, and keep going with your ripple effects.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
You've been listening to the Inspire Cafe podcast. You'll find the show at theinspirecafe.com, and also we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe and share with your friends. Until our next conversation, thank you for listening.